For 30 years, Redd Foxx made America laugh, earning $4 million a year, living in a Las Vegas mansion with 7 luxury cars, and wearing a watch gifted personally by Elvis Presley. The man who turned a Los Angeles junkyard into the most watched living room in television history was one of the highest paid entertainers in the country. But behind the legendary punchlines, a lavish lifestyle, 4 broken marriages, and a skyrocketing tax bill were quietly destroying him. In November 1989, government agents raided his home. They seized his cars, jewelry, and cash, even stripping a necklace right off his wrist, while his Hollywood friends vanished. When they left, only his bed remained. This is the heartbreaking truth of how Redd Foxx lost absolutely everything. A boy from St. Louis, who had nothing to lose.
Fred Sanford and so if they don't have a part for Fred, there's nothing else left, so Red is dead.
Before the fame, there was hunger. Not the kind of hunger that makes you uncomfortable, the kind that makes you desperate. The kind of hunger that sends a little boy digging through trash cans looking for something to eat. That was Redd Foxx, before the punchlines, before Fred Sanford, the Las Vegas mansion, and the 7 luxury cars, and the watch from Elvis Presley. Before any of it, there was just a boy in St. Louis with nothing, and that nothing shaped everything that came after. His real name was John Elroy Sanford, born December 9, 1922, in St. Louis, Missouri. His father was named Fred Sanford. Yes, that name. The same name he would one day make immortal on American television. But his father did not stick around long enough to see any of it. When John was 4 years old, Fred Sanford Sr. walked out. No explanation and no goodbye. Just gone, left a mother, a grandmother, and 2 small boys to figure out the rest on their own. Mary Sanford worked as a domestic. She cleaned other people's houses to keep her children fed. Some days it was enough, most days it was not. Poverty in that house was not a phase. It was a permanent condition. John learned early that the world did not owe him anything. That help was not coming, that if he wanted something, he was going to have to find it himself. He found it in laughter. Even as a small boy, he was the one making people laugh. Street corners, schoolrooms. Wherever there was an audience, John Sanford was performing. He had a gift for it the way some boys have a gift for running or fighting. It was simply there, fully formed from the beginning. But laughter did not pay rent. At 13 years old, John Sanford made a decision. He dropped out of school and left St. Louis. Not because he wanted adventure, because staying meant more of the same, more poverty and invisibility, more of a future that looked exactly like the present. He ran away to Chicago, joined a street band playing the washboard. He was 13 years old, sleeping wherever he could, eating whatever he could find, surviving on the margins of a city that did not know his name and did not care to learn it. For 3 years, he played that washboard. 3 years of barely getting by. Then the band broke up. He had nothing. Again. Just like he always had. So, he did the only thing that made sense. He hopped a freight train to New York City. Harlem in the 1940s was the center of Black American life. It was loud and complicated and alive in a way that nothing in St. Louis or Chicago had prepared him for. He arrived with empty pockets and no plan. He found work washing dishes at a place called Jimmy's Chicken Shack. That is where he met Malcolm Little, a young man working in the same kitchen, lean, watchful, burning with something that had not yet found its shape. The world would come to know Malcolm Little as Malcolm X. But in that kitchen, they were just 2 young black men trying to survive. And Malcolm noticed something about the dishwasher with the red hair and the quick mouth. He was funny, not casually funny, remarkably funny. The kind of funny that made the kitchen workers stop what they were doing and listen. Years later, Malcolm X wrote about him in his autobiography. He called him Chicago Red, the funniest dishwasher on this earth. That line has outlasted almost everything else from that period of both their lives. 2 men at the very bottom. One would become a prophet, one would become a king, but neither of them knew that yet. Now, here is the first thing you need to understand about what came later. Redd Foxx grew up in a world that had a specific place assigned for men like him. That place was nowhere near the top. Black performers in America during the 1940s had one option: the Chitlin Circuit, a network of black-owned theaters, clubs, and venues spread across the country where black artists could perform without facing the restrictions of the segregated mainstream. The stages were small, the pay was low, The conditions were often difficult, but it was work, and for Foxx, work was everything. He started performing comedy on those stages, raw, unfiltered, honest comedy that came directly from the life he had lived. There was no pretense and polish, no performance of respectability for an audience that expected him to stay in his lane. He said what he thought. He talked about real life, about sex and race and poverty and the specific absurdity of being a black man in mid-century America. Audiences loved it. In the late 1940s, he teamed up with a comedian named Melvin Slappy White. They called themselves Foxx and White, and they did something that was considered almost radical at the time. They refused to wear blackface. In an era when black performers were still expected in many venues to degrade themselves for the comfort of white audiences, Foxx and White said no. Slappy played the straight man, Foxx played the comic relief. It was a new kind of act, and it worked. They performed at the Apollo Theater in Harlem. They toured the National Chitlin Circuit. Audiences responded to something they had not seen before: two black men on a stage being fully themselves. The act lasted until 1952, when they split in Los Angeles. But what those years built inside Redd Foxx was something no stage or salary could have given him: confidence, the knowledge that he was the real thing. In 1955, a promoter named Dootsy Williams caught his act in Los Angeles. He offered Foxx $25 to record it. $25. Foxx said yes. That recording became his first comedy album, Laugh of the Party, and it sold. Not in white record stores, not on white radio stations. Those doors were closed to material like his. But in black neighborhoods across America, people bought it and played it and talked about it. Between 1956 and 1961, Dootsy Records released 30 records, 61. Dootsy Records released 35 of Redd Foxx's party records, 35 albums in 5 years, sales in the millions. He was famous, genuinely, undeniably famous, but only inside a world that the mainstream America of the time pretended did not exist. He was making money, decent money, but not the real money. Not the kind of money that changes the entire shape of a life. That was still coming, and when it came all at once. The habits of a lifetime, though. Those were already set. The boy who had rummaged through trash cans in St. Louis had grown into a man who spent freely the moment he had anything to spend. Because he had learned before he could read that things disappear, that security is temporary, that you take what you can while you can because tomorrow it might be gone. That lesson served him when he had nothing. It would eventually destroy him when he had everything. He was almost 50 years old when the real break finally came. Almost 50 years of stages, albums, and audiences who loved him, and a mainstream that kept its doors firmly shut. But Norman Lear was watching, and Norman Lear was about to change everything. The junk man who conquered television.
I might need that money tonight. Oh, I've never had pains like this before.
Here is something most people forget. Redd Foxx was 49 years old when Sanford and Son first aired. 49 years old. Nearly 5 decades of poverty, rejection, underground albums, segregated stages, and doors that would not open. And then, on January 14th, 1972, everything changed. Not gradually or slowly, all at once. Norman Lear and producer Bud Yorkin were adapting a British sitcom called Steptoe and Son for American audiences. The original show followed a father and son running a junk and rag business in London. Lear saw something in it, a working-class story, unglamorous, honest. The kind of comedy that came from real life rather than a writer's room, trying to guess what real life looked like. He needed someone to anchor it, not a polished sitcom actor or a safe choice. Someone who carried authenticity in his bones. Someone whose entire life had been preparation for this specific role. He chose Redd Foxx. NBC was not fully comfortable with the decision. A black-led sitcom built around a cantankerous junk dealer in the Watts neighborhood of Los Angeles was not the obvious move for a major network in 1972. There were doubts and conversations. There was hesitation. They aired it anyway. The reaction was immediate. Sanford and Son entered the top 10 almost immediately and stayed there for 5 straight seasons. At one point, NBC ran the show twice a week just to meet the demand. Foxx won a Golden Globe for Best Actor in a Comedy Series. He was nominated for 3 Primetime Emmy Awards. His salary went from $6,000 per episode at the start to $25,000 per episode within a few seasons, for a man who had once accepted $25 to record his first comedy album, for a man who had washed dishes in Harlem to survive. $25,000 per episode was a number that had no frame of reference in his personal history. It was incomprehensible money, and it arrived with no instruction manual. The character of Fred G. Sanford became one of the most beloved figures in the history of American television. A 65-year-old junk dealer, stubborn, dramatic, hilarious, deeply human underneath all the bluster, and his signature moment, the fake heart attack, clutching his chest, staggering, calling out to his dead wife, Elizabeth, in heaven, declaring that this was the big one. It made audiences howl every single time. What most people did not see was the truth underneath that gag. Foxx was a man with genuine anxiety about death, real fear about what came after the fame. The fake heart attack was funny because it was performed, but it was rooted in something that was not funny at all. Life would eventually make that irony impossible to ignore, but even at the absolute peak, the warning signs were there. Midway through the 1973-74 season, Foxx walked off the set. NBC and Tandem Productions told the press he had shown up flaunting a pearl-handled revolver. Foxx cited health issues, nervous exhaustion, back problems. A 17-year marriage that was collapsing under the pressure of his schedule. The real cause was money. He felt the show was generating enormous wealth for the network and the producers, and that his share did not reflect what his face and his talent were actually worth. Tandem Productions sued him and co-star Demond Wilson, who walked out in solidarity for $10 million. Breach of contract. Foxx eventually returned. He won a salary increase. But something had shifted. He had learned something from that walkout. Something that felt like power, but was actually the beginning of a pattern that would follow him for the rest of his life. He had learned that he could walk away from anything and still land on his feet. That belief would cost him everything. In 1977, after 6 seasons, Foxx left Sanford and Son for good. ABC wanted to damage NBC's dominant Friday night lineup, and they were willing to spend whatever it took. They offered Foxx his own variety show, the Redd Foxx Comedy Hour. His name above the title, his vision, his platform, he took it. NBC's ratings collapsed without him. Foxx had been the engine of one of the most successful franchises in television history, and ABC canceled his show after 1 season. They had gotten what they wanted from the deal. Foxx had served his purpose, and now he was standing on the outside of the network system he had helped build, without Fred Sanford to fall back on, with a spending habit that had been quietly growing for years. And the IRS had just started paying attention, when the money started disappearing.
Taxes. So the government came there one night when all the people in the room just took everything.
Here is a number worth sitting with: $4 million. That is what Redd Foxx earned in a single year at the height of his career. $4 million in 1 year. More money than his mother had seen in her entire lifetime. More money than the boy digging through trash cans in St. Louis could have imagined in his wildest dreams. It was gone almost as fast as it arrived. Las Vegas was where the money went to die. After leaving ABC, Foxx planted himself in the city and became a headline act almost immediately. He loved everything about it: the energy, the freedom, the audience that showed up every night ready to be entertained. He once said it was the greatest city in the world. But Las Vegas is specifically designed to separate people from their money, and Foxx arrived with no defenses against it. He built a life that matched his public image in every way. A mansion, 7 luxury vehicles in the driveway, fine jewelry, expensive watches, a lifestyle that announced to everyone who saw it that Redd Foxx had made it. And underneath all of it, the bills were piling up quietly. Then there were the marriages, 4 of them, each one with a financial consequence attached. His second marriage to Betty Jean Harris lasted 17 years. The divorce in 1975 cost him $300,000 in settlement alone. His third marriage to Joey Yun-Chi Chung ended in 1981 with further costs attached: alimony, legal fees, settlements. Each marriage that ended took another piece of what he had built. And through all of it, the spending never slowed down. The IRS would later make a specific allegation that captured the whole picture in a single sentence. They claimed that Foxx spent $373,000 of his $500,000 Harlem Nights paycheck on wine, women, song, and gambling. $373,000 out of $500,000, gone. But here is the part that gets lost in that number. Foxx was also legendarily generous. He gave money away constantly, to friends who needed it, to people who simply asked, to strangers who caught him on a good day. He had come from nothing, and somewhere deep inside, he never fully believed the money was real, so he spent it before it could disappear on its own. That psychology made perfect sense for a boy from St. Louis who had grown up watching everything get taken away. It made no sense at all for a man managing a multi-million-dollar tax obligation. By 1983, the IRS had lost patience. Foxx owed $2.5 million in back taxes. He had already lost properties. The government had filed multiple tax liens against everything he owned. With no other option, he filed for bankruptcy. It did not help. He kept performing, kept trying to earn his way out of the hole. But the IRS was intercepting his earnings before he could touch them. He told a reporter exactly what it felt like. Every penny he made, every week. They went down and got it. He tried television again. The Redd Foxx show on ABC in 1986, canceled after 12 episodes. A Broadway production called Redd Foxx and Friends. It failed. Nothing worked. Nothing came close to what Sanford and Son had been. Each failure tightened the grip a little more. He was 66 years old, broke, exhausted, and still the IRS wanted more. The worst morning of his life was coming, and he would not see it until it was already standing at his front door. The morning they took everything, November 28, 1989. Las Vegas had not yet fully woken up, but the IRS had. They arrived at Redd Foxx's home with paperwork, authority, and a complete absence of sympathy. They were not there to negotiate or to listen to explanations, promises, or appeals to decency. They had a job and documentation, and they had run out of patience with a man who had owed them money for years. What happened inside that house over the next several hours was one of the most brutal scenes in the history of American entertainment. Not brutal with violence, brutal with humiliation. They moved through the property with precision. 7 luxury vehicles pulled out of the driveway one by one. Gone. Over $12,000 in cash located on the property. Gone. They broke into his late mother's luggage trunks, the personal belongings of a woman who had worked as a domestic her whole life, a woman who had raised 2 boys alone after their father walked out, and whose things had been kept with care by the son she had raised. Those belongings were pulled out and thrown onto the garage floor, just thrown there, like they meant nothing. They located his safety deposit box. Inside was jewelry that reporters would later describe as being worth over $100,000. Watches, necklaces, pieces he had collected over decades of performing, gifts from friends, memories in metal and stone, all of it taken. Then they turned to the man himself. They removed the necklace from around his neck. They removed the ID bracelet from his wrist. They reached into his pocket and took the money he was carrying. He stood there and let them do it, because there was nothing else to do, because the paperwork was real, and the debt was real. The moment was real, no matter how surreal it felt, to be standing in his own home watching the government strip him down to nothing. They tried to take his 4 dogs, that they did not get. When it was over, they left. And Redd Foxx stood in a house that contained almost nothing, except a bed. That was what remained of $4 million a year, of 30 years of performing, of the Chitlin circuit, the party records, Fred Sanford, and the sold-out Las Vegas shows. A bed. He did not stay silent about it. That was never his way. Redd Foxx had spent his entire career saying out loud what other people kept quiet. He was not about to stop now. He spoke to reporters. He spoke with the specific hurt of a man who had not just lost his possessions, but had lost something harder to name. He said he could have called Eddie Murphy. He could have called Richard Pryor or Frank Sinatra. He said he had been helpful to a lot of people over the years, that those people knew it, that they could have stepped in. Nobody had called, Not one person from the Hollywood world he had spent decades helping to build had picked up the phone. Not one person had reached out to offer help, support, or even acknowledgement that what was happening to him was wrong. He named no villains. He pointed no specific fingers. But the hurt was there in every word, quiet and unmistakable. Because for Foxx, the empty house was painful. But the silence from his friends was devastating. There was one exception, Eddie Murphy. Murphy had cast Foxx in Harlem Nights that same year. He had watched up close what the man was capable of. He had seen the talent and the generosity. He saw the dignity that Foxx carried even in the middle of financial collapse. And when he heard what the IRS had done, he did not look the other way. Murphy contacted the IRS directly. He brought his attorney Mark Rissman and his accountant Louis Pittman with him. Together, they negotiated a payment plan on Foxx's behalf. They worked to stabilize what little remained. They did it without cameras and without press releases and without any of the public performance of generosity that Hollywood usually requires before it acts. They simply did it because it was the right thing to do. Foxx got some of his property back the following year. The house was returned to him after negotiations. Some possessions came back, but not the cars, not the jewelry, or the watch. The watch that Elvis Presley had given him personally, the one that connected him to a friendship that had stretched across decades. Across the divide between a black comedian from St. Louis and the white kid from Tupelo, who became the king of rock and roll. Elvis had invited Foxx to his wedding, the only celebrity given that honor. They had been genuinely close in the way that people from similar kinds of poverty sometimes recognize each other across every other difference. That watch was auctioned off by the government to pay a debt, sold to a stranger, gone forever. There is something specific about losing an irreplaceable gift that goes beyond the financial. You can rebuild money slowly, painfully, imperfectly, but you can rebuild it. You cannot rebuild a watch from Elvis or what it represented. The friendship, the recognition, the proof that at the height of both their careers, two men who had come from nothing had found each other and decided the connection was worth keeping. That was the part of the raid that the dollar figures could not capture. It was not just an auction. It was the government selling off the evidence of a life. Redd Foxx was 66 years old. He had almost nothing. His body was tired. His finances were in ruins. The Hollywood friends had gone quiet, but he was not finished. Because Redd Foxx had grown up with nothing before. He had hopped freight trains and washed dishes, and played the washboard on street corners and performed on stages that the rest of America pretended did not exist. He had built something from nothing once. He was going to try to do it again, and this time, one person was going to make sure he had a real chance. The comeback that came too late, 1991. Redd Foxx was 68 years old, broke, carrying a tax debt that had followed him for nearly a decade. His Las Vegas home had been raided and his cars were gone. His jewelry was gone. The watch from Elvis was gone. And he went back to work, because that was all he knew how to do. That was all he had ever known how to do. From the washboard in Chicago to the Chitlin Circuit, to the party records, to Fred Sanford. Work was the one constant, the one thing that had never abandoned him the way people had, the way his father had, the way his Hollywood friends had. The stage had always been there, so he returned to it. Eddie Murphy had not forgotten him. On the set of Harlem Nights in 1989, Murphy had watched something happen that surprised even him. Foxx and actress Della Reese had shared scenes together, and the chemistry between them was immediate and undeniable. Two veterans, two people who had paid every possible dues the entertainment industry could demand. Two people who understood instinctively how to make a moment breathe. Murphy saw it and made a decision. He was going to build something around it. He developed a sitcom specifically for Foxx and Reese, a CBS show called The Royal Family. Foxx would play Al Royal, a retired postal worker. Reese would play his wife, Victoria. Their daughter and her family moved back into the house. Chaos and warmth and laughter follow. It was the kind of show that felt lived in from the very first episode. When The Royal Family debuted in the fall of 1991, it opened to strong ratings. Critics responded warmly. Audiences connected immediately. For the first time in over a decade, Redd Foxx was back at the center of something that was genuinely working. It felt like a second act, the kind that almost never happens. He also did something else that year that almost nobody expected. He got married for the fourth time. Her name was Ka Ho Cho. She was younger, she was calm, and according to Fox, she had no interest whatsoever in his financial status. She had not come looking for the mansion or the cars or the jewelry. Those things were already gone anyway. She had seen him with a nickel. He said it simply and directly in the way he said most things. She saw me with a nickel, and hopefully she will see me with $1. It was one of the most honest sentences he ever spoke publicly. Not a performance or a punchline. Just a man at the end of a long, hard road saying plainly that he wanted someone who wanted him. Not what he used to have, not what he might get back. Him. There was something quietly heartbreaking about it, and something quietly hopeful too. The set of the royal family on October 11th, 1991 was ordinary in every way. A rehearsal day. Lines being run, blocking being worked out. The normal rhythm of a television production finding its footing. Fox was there, working, present, doing what he had done on stages and sets for over 50 years. And then he collapsed. He went down on the set floor, and the people around him did what any reasonable person would do when Redd Foxx fell down clutching his chest. They laughed. Because this was Redd Foxx, the man who had made the fake heart attack one of the most recognizable moments in television history. The man whose Fred Sanford had staggered and gasped, and called out to Elizabeth in heaven so many times that the bit had become part of American comedy's permanent vocabulary. They thought he was performing. He was not performing. Della Reese understood it first. She knelt down beside him, and she prayed out loud right there on that set floor. She said, "Do not die, Redd." She said it more than once. Do not die. But the ambulance came, and they took him to the hospital. And that evening, October 11th, 1991, Redd Foxx died of heart failure. He was 68 years old. The financial picture at the time of his death was stark. His net worth was negative $3.5 million. Not zero. Not broke in the conventional sense. Worse than zero. He died owing more than he had ever owned at any single point in his life. The IRS debt had outlasted everything. The mansion, the cars, jewelry, and watch. All of it gone, and the debt still standing. There was no money for a funeral. Eddie Murphy paid for it. The funeral, the headstone, everything. No press release or announcement. No public performance of generosity designed to generate goodwill. Murphy simply made sure that the man who had helped pave the road that Murphy and Richard Pryor and every black comedian who came after him had walked was buried with the dignity he deserved. It was a lavish funeral, the kind that honored what Fox had been at his best. Not what the IRS files said he was worth, or what the auction records said his possessions had sold for. What he had actually been. One of the most important comedians in American history. Here is what that history actually looks like. Redd Foxx was the bridge between the black vaudeville of the Chitlin circuit and the stadium comedy of Richard Pryor and Eddie Murphy and every name that followed. He proved that black audiences existed and were enormous and were hungry for comedy that reflected their actual lives. He proved it with 35 party records that sold millions of copies in neighborhoods that mainstream America was pretending did not exist. He proved it again with Fred Sanford, the first black family sitcom to reach the absolute top of American primetime, not a supporting character. It was not a safe, sanitized version of blackness designed to make white audiences comfortable. A fully human, complicated, funny, difficult, lovable man living in Watts. America fell in love with him. So, why did it end the way it did? That is the question underneath all of this. The sad reason the title of this video promises to answer. And here is the truth of it. It was not one thing. It was never one thing. It was the boy from St. Louis who learned before he could read that money disappears. That security is temporary. That you spend what you have because tomorrow it might be gone. That lesson was formed in poverty, and it never left him no matter how much money arrived. It was the man who walked off the set of Sanford and Son and learned that he could survive anything. That confidence made him fearless and careless. He walked away from the one stable platform he had built because he believed he could always build another one. He could not. It was the generous man who gave and gave and gave to people who took and took and took and disappeared when the giving stopped. He spent decades pouring himself out for audiences, former wives and friends who went silent the moment he needed something back. All of it together, not greed or stupidity. Not a simple failure of financial management, that a better accountant could have fixed. Something more human than any of that. A man who had come from nothing, who never fully believed the money was real, who spent his whole life giving himself away because that was the only currency he had ever truly trusted, until there was nothing left to give. He came from trash cans in St. Louis and made it to the top of American television, made the whole country laugh for 30 years. And in the end, the government took the house and the cars and the jewelry and the watch from Elvis, and the Hollywood friends stayed quiet. But Eddie Murphy showed up, paid for the funeral and the headstone, made sure the man who paved the way for an entire generation of black comedians did not disappear without being honored. Redd Foxx deserved better. And now you know the full story, because the truth is always more powerful than the highlight reel.